So now what we're going to do here is we're going to look at the script that you sent, and also and then I'm going to ask you questions. So yeah, so I'm going to ask Joanne questions, and then see whether how or where these demonstrations are, so that you can help Brio in a much more deeper sense when she prepares for the second recording. Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look at this. And okay, here you see a transcript, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now, okay. So let's ask Joanne. Like based on this, what are you seeing here in the first few portions?
Yeah, okay. So in the first two lines, it's basically about Will having that rapport with Victor. There is one part that I want to highlight here. I know there isn't a timestamp, but on the third line, thank you for meeting with me this morning again, right? This part. And up into the fifth line, so Brill actually says that only the ICF assessor will have access to this recording. So this is still a safe space as usual where you can share freely. I have given a change on this, not to say so. This is still a safe space because my perspective is it's definitely a safe space. So to actually emphasize this is still a safe space is like adding a another layer of thought in the mind of the client. So I find this sentence should be removed. So instead, it can actually be said that this is a safe space where you can explore freely instead of using the word still. And also the last sentence, hope you are okay with that. I find that could be an assumption that the client will be okay. So it can be a question whereby uh, could just actually pause it at this, not to actually add this sentence, hope you are okay with that. So
Okay.
I'm actually looking at the whole perspective as how a ICF assessor, because when I'm listening and I'm looking at it, I just want to make sure that it comes very naturally in Will's recording.
Mm,
So if I'm talking to you, Jedi, right now, you're my client, or Jedi, thank you for meeting me this morning, and and also thank you for giving me the permission to record this session. So I want to say this session will be recorded for the purpose of my ICF submission, and only the ICF assessor will access to this recording. So it is a safe place for you to explore freely. Full stop.
mm.
Uh, I just find that it's clear and short, so that certain kind of extra word added, there is a linger of thought behind.
Yeah. Okay. So that is okay to state that to the client. And now I would say this, for especially for the start here, um, to see whether there was evidence or no evidence of whether the coach had time with the client. So I give an example. Okay. So um this session we recorded for my coaching studio, only I said blah 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 blah. All this, right, is actually way too many. Okay, so I tell you why. Because this is what I often explain to the coaches like this. Say here that this portion of the explanation would have been done before the start of the recording. Yeah. So for example, right, before I even press the record button, I would have really prepared the client. I say, hey, Mr. Client, thank you again for that. That this is what for today's recording, I'll be recording it, and I'm gonna use it for submission of ICF and also for training purposes. Before I even press record. Yeah. So what do we do in the recording? Well, the only thing that we do in the recording is to state by saying this word, thank you for, or I would usually like to say this. Okay, so hi Bill, okay, so once again, thank you for allowing me to record this session for the purpose of my ICF credentialing. That's it. So this statement is not asking for permission, but to restate our agreement in the formative session. Okay, so which means that before you even started this conversation today, the client already know that this is going to be recorded. So when I saying thank you for allowing me to record, I'm not asking for permission. What I'm asking is that I'm just acknowledging and I'm just restating the agreement that we had before. So when the assessors hear and they know, okay, you had done this work prior to that, right? Now, what if you don't even no, what if you don't even have this one? Will you still fail or pass? Well, even if you don't have all this, you can still pass. It doesn't matter, right? Because the assumption taken is that when you upload your recording, ICF will ask you to declare whether your client has given you permission for it. Therefore, I don't need to say all these things again. I don't have to say all these things again. What I want to say is just probably a very simple sentence like this: just thank you for allowing me to record. So just so that in the future, right? In the future, it's captured in the recording itself that the client had already agreed before the session. So many coaches, when they ask questions, they're asking for permission to record in the coaching recording. So what if the client says no? Then what, your whole recording gone already. So yeah, so usually all these things we have done before, and the only sentence that we're probably gonna say is this one. Then the expected response from the client, okay, this is what the client should be saying. Or expected response is that, oh, yeah, you're welcome, right? You're welcome. Then you straight away start into the coaching conversation already. Yeah.
Okay,
Then
so
just
I
dive.
want to confirm that means this sentence is accepted by the ICF because you already done your pre-arrangement of I know before the recording, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so this is what we do for all the sessions as well. Yeah. So for if you're mentoring the client, like for Brielle, now she knows this, so Brielle don't have to say so many things already. It saves her energy. It saves her energy. Okay. Now, however, okay, here is where it gets interesting. Okay, since the last time we met, how have you been? I have been good, very busy because of the pandemic. We cannot go out of house. I've been zooming, and actually, one thing is missing here. You know, okay. So I've been busy, and okay, I've been Zoom meetings, and I also had to do extra work to clean up the house. So no wonder I've not seen you for a while. You have been busy. Well, okay. So here, this okay. So let's ask Joanne. What do you think about this response from the client? So what in the mentoring session, right? Is usually I don't just look at the question or comment here. I'm looking in terms of the response of the coach in relation to what the client has mentioned earlier. Whether there's a
Um,
sense of continuity. Yeah.
this is where I have captured that the tone of voice is a little bit I wouldn't say that it is mismatched, but I do find that this part where no wonder I've not seen him for a while, it also has got a connotation of assumption. Um, you have been busy, and then what would you like to discuss? So I would think that the part may the coach may want to take some time to build on what um, the client has said about I've been doing my work, doing Zoom meeting, rather than dive straight into what you want to discuss today. So that continuation of what the client has said. Yeah, so it could be I'm hearing that life has been quite busy for you, and that you mentioned that you're working from home and doing Zoom meeting. How has that been for you? So it's like a continuation to have that 1 minute of conversation to anchor that rapport building and also establish that trust and intimacy before we
Mm,
proceed to the key subject matter.
yeah. Yeah. There are a few areas here that you can try. Okay, so for example, right, let's say this is for a PCC recording, then this is what we can tell the coach. Say, hey, coach, okay, this is a great opportunity to demonstrate which competency.
Mm, this will be a great opportunity to uh, demonstrate CC4 and especially 4.2 shows support, empathy, and
Yeah.
concern for the client. And and the words that the client use, there could also be some expression of feelings uh, there is a little bit of 4.3.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So here, actually, to me, I love it when the start when we ask how they are, because I can kind of like, do a little checkbox that I've done that kind of thing, right? Of course, in terms of naturalistic conversation, so the approach, right, that I always take. Okay, this is my Jedi's philosophy. You don't have to take it, but this is my approach. Is what I call naturalistic conversation, conversation flow. Okay, so now the idea behind it is that what makes the conversation most natural in that context? What's most natural? So, for example, right, when we look at this is when the coach is actually moving the conversation, rather than going with what the client might have in mind. I give you an example why I think this might be so. So, you see, how have you been? Usually in the Asian context, or usually most people will just have a very short sentence, like, oh, I've been good, things are going well, that's it, right? But for a client to express quite a number of things here, so there are underlying emotions, feelings, thoughts, or something about these things, which we still have not quite realized that. So that's when I will kind of like break this part here from wanting to quickly get into the session outcome, to spend a little bit of time to kind of unlock what's really on his heart today, so that he can be primed for today's session, because there's still something on his mind, right? That has not yet been resolved there. So the coach could do this. The coach could say whatever Braille said earlier, said, hey, oh, and that explains, or no wonder, or that explains why I have not seen. So let's use the same words, you, for a while. Uh, you you sound, uh, you know, from what I hear, you sound really busy. Okay, then I'll kind of pause there for a while. Okay, so I would put this particular statement from what I'm hearing, or what I hear, rather than you have been busy, because that's my imposition on the client's world. I would kind of say, okay, from what I hear, you sound really busy over the last several weeks, or over whichever. So I can put something here, right? Why I would tend to use words like what I hear. Uh, Yes, yes. So that question, how does that business make you feel? Yes, that's the what's going to come after this, because I will pause there to give the client to okay, the reason for this statement, right, is to allow the client to express a bit more. Okay, then from there, then I can add in to what I can add on to what Rio said there. So the client can say something, and then that's when I will come introduce this, right? So for example, um and how does that busyness make you feel? Now, can you just jump straight to asking this? You can, but sometimes in the conversation, I like to kind of like warm up the client.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, for a few
mm.
reasons. Because sometimes, right, let's say we jump too fast. It's like uh, it's like I ask you, hey, do you want to eat dessert now? It's haven't warm up yet. The poor client haven't warm up yet. So I want to
Yeah.
slowly like let him come out. Right? So this again, this is a more of an artistic decision rather than a any kind of decision. So you could do this. You can ask straight away, how does that business make you feel? But usually I if it's this is the first thing that this is the first question that I ask, right? If usually this is the start, I would kind of like let it slowly kind of open up and warm up first, like what I call conversation blooming. Let it kind of bloom, and I get a client to tell me more. So
Mm.
words like this, right? Okay, so the coach could also do this. One of a very good way to demonstrate competency number 4 is to use words like this. Tell me more. Yeah, so this would be a very good way, yeah, to just say, hey, tell me more, blah blah blah. So tell me more, and I hear you and everything. So this will all demonstrate competency number 4. Yeah, because your interest to kind of like support the client, and and showing empathy. So basically, if the client's really feeling busy, and then say, hey, it must be really hard on you. So this doesn't sound very Asian. Okay, so for example, if let's say the client express whatever, and it must have been really hard on you, juggling, blah blah blah. Okay, by expressing out this, right? We are expressing our empathy towards the client. Okay, so in a more obvious form. So now in the mentoring process, so sometimes maybe the client or the coach has just stated one statement, but I usually like to get a coach to just express a little bit more, just demonstrate a little bit more, because again, the assessors that might be assessing all over the place. So for PCC, you have two assessors. They will each have their own way of interpreting, because based on their own experience, also based on their own language understanding. So usually I would say to help the assessors is just to give them a little bit more, so that it's easier for them to kind of understand. Yeah. Okay. So that is this. Yeah. Now, of course,
Yeah.
if you send it to me for assessing, then it will be very very different, because I kind of understand where you're coming from the cultural perspective. But if from the assessment perspective, if the assessors are not from the same culture, they probably may not understand as much.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know, because in fact, when I look at the script, when the client say I'll enjoy makan session, so I remove the makan session. I enjoy meal times with my friend, because the Amor will not understand what is makan session. ICF assessor, right? So yeah, so these are the small little things, even though it's said by the client. Okay, Bill was asking one question on the chat box. Is that a possible question? How does the busyness make you feel? How does that busyness make you feel? Can this question be used instead?
Yeah. Right. So this time I was addressing Bria's question, where it's a good question. You can use them uh, after the client tells you more, and then you say, "Hey, how does the busyness make me feel?" So this is what happens. Okay, I give you the secret formula. You want I give the Bria secret formula. So I give Joanne the secret formula. Secret formula to this is very simple. Okay, it's what I call the TEB. Okay, so the thoughts. Okay, I want to hear the client's thoughts. I'm asking questions for the client's thoughts. With the thoughts, I want to find the related emotions that is coming from the thoughts and the resultant behaviors as a result of those emotions. Okay, so there's a sequence of questions that I ask, and it's a strategy, and this strategy is taken from the psychotherapies, as well as the world from psychology as well. This idea of cognitive behaviors, where we start thinking from the thoughts. So I'm asking these questions to elicit the thoughts of the client, then connecting with the emotions. What is the client really feeling right now, and what is the resultant behavior that they're not seeing, and that's why they're feeling upset. So for example, the resultant behavior is that, wow, that I got no energy to do my work. That's the resultant behavior, right? So I'm helping the client to create awareness across these three layers. Yeah. And that kinds of go deeper with the client. Yeah. So from the mentor coach perspective, when I kind of like help the client see, I begin to look at this as, hey, okay, are we jumping too fast? So because this is more of a behavioral question, right? So I want to find out more a little bit about how the client is thinking about the situation, then go deeper, and then go deeper, and then go deeper. Yeah, like this. Okay, so this one we cover more in our cognitive behavior coaching class, but this is very useful for mentoring as well, right? Where we kind of like delineate between these three. And okay, Brio asks, is in my coaching I do that, but when it comes to PCC coaching, I'm conflicted over the CA, worrying that I wasted too much time building trust. Oh, no. You actually, your trust building is quite short. So, yeah, I would say let's say how long is this conversation? It's 4,000 words. Okay, so 4,000 words is about 30, 40
30
minutes.
plus minutes, yeah.
So
So
you can actually,
because when I did my ACC, I remembered that there were a few times where I was told that I spent too much time in the front building rapport and trust. So, but I'm glad to see what you're saying now, that it gives the assessor time to assess this particular CC4, right? In terms of the PCC markers. So then I'm not so worried, because actually this is not natural for me, to be very honest, to jump straight into the the CA. Yeah, usually in my normal coaching, right, it's all about hearing them, their feedback, what they've done in the previous session, what they plan out to do, and then the feedback and all that. So it has a lot of things, you cover that a lot, and then after that, once they're done and happy with whatever they happy, not happy, whatever reflection they had with the previous session, right? I mean, like feedback on the previous session, the task that they're supposed to do, then we usually then only do we like I usually spend maybe about 5 to 8 minutes, as in they spend about 5 to 8 minutes talking about their progress from the previous session. Then after that, I would focus on that first, like how did they feel about their progress and so on and so forth. So that's, for me, in my coaching sessions, that's the part that we build trust, because it is a lead on from the previous session. You cannot just go in and jump into a new topic, because especially clients that has been with you for a while, is a longer term relationship, longer term goal. And then whatever they have discussed in the past session, they need to share with you their progress, because otherwise there is no there's no follow-up, there's no whatever. So usually that's spent in the first 15 minutes or 10 minutes of the coaching, right? So using that is usually my building rapport, building trust, is like follow up, and also a lead on to the current session on maybe something specific that is a remnant from the last session or whatever it may be. But usually that is the style that I have. But then when it comes to PCC coaching, because of this whole recording thing and also my past experience, I realized that I was very worried. So that's why I straight away jump into it. And but I'm thankful that actually Joanne and yourself both highlight to me that there is a need to demonstrate a longer term, at least another 1 or 2 minutes or so of developing that rapport. So I appreciate that. The other thing is also, I just wanted a feedback that when I was listening, re-listening and reflecting on the recording, right, I also agree with Joanne that the words being used, like for example, no wonder I've not seen you for a while. When I re-listen, I'm conflicted, because actually that shouldn't have been said, because at that point I say it because I have not physically seen you, but it doesn't mean that I haven't been coaching you. You get where I'm coming from? But then the assessor may think that, how come you haven't been seeing this person? Then, you jump straight into this. You get what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So actually the language is wrong. Yeah, I agree, because the person who's assessing it will not have understood that when I don't physically see you, doesn't mean I haven't been coaching you. So that's the so that's it's a good awareness, when Joanne brings up that, this sentence is a bit off lah. I mean, other than the tonality, but I also think that the language it can be improved. The language can be improved.
That's fine. In fact, that to me, that's not a critical factor that will cause you to fail your PCC. What will cause you to fail PCC, right, is that, say, out of all the markers, you're not demonstrating at least 70 to 80% of them, then that's something that we're missing. So things like this, I would say, these are great things to be mindful of, and especially if you're preparing for your MCC level, then this kind of wordings will be very, very I'll be more picky. So that's why you see that I'm not so picky in all these things at the start, because we kind of tailor towards the PCC level. Now, if you remember our program, many programs you attended. So this thing called the systemic co-creative coaching process, right? It's CCL, right? Remember CCL? You just really remember this: connection, then co-creation, and then a sense of leaping forward, right? So this is basically 3 distinct phases that happens in all coaching conversation. It will happen one. If it doesn't happen, then something's wrong. So in the connection phase, it's what you just explained. Like for example, I will ask in the connection phase, a few competencies demonstrated here, right? I would say CC4, CC8. Those are the key ones. Why 8? Because I'm checking in with them from the last session, how it was, what actions did they take, what was missing, what accountability they say they're going to do but they're not doing, right? What progress they say they want to make but it's not making, or what went well. Okay, or have they achieved it so easily, so quickly, that they realize that they have like kind of do what's enough but not really pushing themselves forward. So from there, oftentimes from that connection or leading from that from that last session outcome, then we weave into to this session outcome. That weaving, that thread of weaving from the last session to this session, that's the critical part that we want to hear. Say, hey, okay, how did the coach weave in outstandings from the last part, or maybe achievements from the last part to this session's focus, and how that influences the session focus? Because hearing that will be very important, so it's not just like only this segment. Yeah, so that's why there's this process of connection. Connection doesn't mean just rapport building, but connection as in connection from the thoughts of the previous sessions to this session itself, right? So that's why I always say that the first part of the coaching conversation is that 5-10 minutes you spend on connecting the client, and then after going to the co-creation, that's where you have the OMG lah, which is your outcome, the CA and everything. But before you even go CA, you want to really get that what is missing right now for the person. What has he done? What did he commit to do? But what has he not done? Yeah. So and that's oftentimes demonstrated in the start. So if you do that, actually by doing this part here in the first 5-10 minutes, you're also at the same time, you're at the same time supplementary to this, you're also demonstrating 5, 6, 7. So 5, 6, 7 is constantly demonstrated across all this process. Yeah, 5, 6, 7. Right. So even in connection as well, if I see you responding in tandem to what the client is saying, you have demonstrated competency number 5 and 6. Right. So and that's why, and then you can also do number 7 in this part here. In fact, I can also do learnings here. So for example, if I unravel for the client and they realize, wow, they got some learnings here, I can straight away pop in here. So learnings doesn't just happen at the end. Learnings happen throughout the whole conversation. Yeah. So that's why you see, it's very interesting that there's like a primary competency that's kind of demonstrated there. Like primary for the leap forward is competency on 8, but 5, 6, 7, 5, oh no, 3, 5 or 3, actually 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's all there also. Right? Why? Because at the end, I just want to check in with the coaching agreement. Have we kind of got it out? Right. But of course, the focal agreement is number 8. In the co-creation, of course, it's CC number 3 plus all the other competency, right? All the other competency. Yep. So very simple. That's why it's called CCL. That's why CCL is called CCL. Yeah, I try to create this acronym so it's easier for people to remember in terms of the process. So then you kind of have a frame in mind to know that, okay, I'm now in the connection phase. I've not yet the client still has something else, right? And once it's more or less kind of like resolved, really, I'm ready to enter the next phase of co-creation of outcome, what the client wants for this session, right? That's the weaving in, right? So and this especially if you're doing your PCC, ACC, never mind one. It's not like here and there, never mind. So it's still okay. ACC, ACC, if you just jump in straight to the co-creation, it's fine. Yeah, but for PCC, we want to be able to hear that connection. Okay, so great. Oh, any question, or Joanne, any thoughts?
No. I'm okay with that. I just think that it's good to have that flow of conversation so that it doesn't sound abrupt, and the assessor will not think that this is a script thing, you know.
Yep.
Even though it is script, but it has to come across naturally.
Yes. Yeah. So that's why I always say that the philosophy of the coaching process, if you like, you can take on my approach, which is very naturalistic conversation flow. How you would naturally have that conversation with someone, that natural flow, but yet layering on the naturalistic approach with the competencies. That means being deliberate in my process. If I have 30 or 45 minutes, I kind of have that in mind. So let's say I want to have a 30-minute coaching conversation. I kind of give myself up to 45 minutes so that in case there are areas that I need to expand a little bit more, I will do that. So I have a little bit more time with them. Yeah. So for PCC, it's okay to go 45 minutes. It's okay to go 55 minutes to really give that little more time to kind of express, because you have up to 60 minutes anyway. Okay, so quite good. Here, oh, anyway, I have sent you all the link so you can have a copy of it. Whatever I've just typed here, right, and then you can edit some more. Yeah. Okay. So okay, so here you see the coach asks here, you think you will be asked to retire at the end of the year? How does that make you feel? Okay. I'm thinking very hard. By the end of the year, I'm going to retire soon, and I'm sure my company, my boss will call me in for a chat, and I just want to plan moving forward what I should do if I decide to do retire from work, or maybe my boss will tell me to retire. Okay, so what do you think about this?
Um, I think these two sentences can be better connected because coach is reflecting to the client based on what he says. You know, you think you'll be asked to retire because the client say my boss will call me in for a chat. Uh, and even though there is that meaning that boss may ask him to retire, uh, how should I put it? Maybe I can actually reflect it in a way whereby it sounds to me that retiring is a plan that you are thinking in your mind. Help me to understand a little bit more before I actually ask how does that make you feel? Because how does that make you feel? This last sentence is a good question, but it is not inserted right in this area. You need to have that in front a little bit more. Tell me more about what is going on in your mind. You know, knowing that uh, you seems to be quite sure that your company or your boss will be calling in for a chat. What is going on in your mind?
So how would we express this to the coach? So for example, in the mentoring phase, right? How would I express this to Brio?
Uh, I I think these three lines that the client has said, Will can actually explore a little bit more to understand what is going on in the client's world, and that will go into the perception to understand, uh, explore the client's current thinking, because this will help to bring the marker 7.4 a bit louder.
Okay. Now this is how I would probably do it. I would the way I always like to do is what I call the response or the response from the client approach. So now so I'm going to demonstrate, for example, if I'm coaching Brio, mentoring Brio now, I say, hey Brio, okay, let's take a look at this question that you just asked. How does that make you feel? It looks like an okay question, but let's look at the response from the client. Now the client says this. How does that make me feel? I'm not sure actually. That's part of the reason why I called you. Now, from this, it's an evidence that this part here, it's an evidence that this question might come across as either premature or might not be really helping the client to move forward. Right? So that's how I explain to the
Mm,
coach, right?
mm,
Say, hey, okay, so how do we know whether how do we measure the effectiveness of a question? Well, the one way to measure the effectiveness of a question is when we ask a question, if we get such response, then we probably know that this question is probably like off the mark kind of question, right? It's not really helping the client, right? So of course, then I can give suggestions. I can say, hey, okay, maybe potentially some of the questions you could ask if you like to, you could say, hey, okay, tell me more, or okay, but tell me more. It's always I would say this is always the backup question, because tell me more sometimes is like, hey, are you listening to me or not? Are you listening to me? But all I would say this, right? So I'll tend to pick up a few of the keywords here, for example, and I'm sure. Okay, so this is for example, I'm sure my company boss will call you for a chat, and I just want to move forward. I'm sure. I just something. Okay, so notice this. There's a sense of urgency here, or there's a sense something here, right? So I as a coach, I can say, hey, right? I'm sensing um some level of urgency um when you mention um that you were sure that your boss will call you in and that you just want to move forward. Okay, so you could do a reflection like this. So it doesn't have to always be questions, it can just be a reflection, right? Like this. So I'm sensing some level of urgency when you mentioned that you were sure. So I may emphasize this word linguistically. You were sure that your boss will call you in, that you just want to move forward. So I'm wondering um, if this urgency I'm just wondering if where this urgency is coming from, for example. Okay, or you can ask the client to explore more of the sense of urgency. That's one approach. Well, I can give you another alternative, right? If it's just a very flat level, then we could say, hey, I'm sure my company, my boss will call me for a chat, and what should I do if I decided to, So this person kind of like admitted defeat already. That is like, oh, it's almost certain that I need to plan forward, right? So what I'm hearing is that that on one hand, okay, that you explain, on the other, uh, so what we want to try to do is kind of reflect the ambivalence that the client is facing. What is the ambivalence the client is actually facing here? Yeah, so it's the ambivalence between um uh me having to retire or me having to move forward. Actually, there's another deeper layer the coach could do, which is what I'm sensing is that um, that you are feeling um, a loss of control. Why? Because um, you are not sure. So you could do this as well. So if you want to share your intuition here, demonstrating competency CC5 by sharing your intuition, you could say here, say, hey, what I'm sensing is that you have this feeling of a loss of control or something like this. Or if you want to make it a little more sensitive, you could say, hey, client, is it okay I share with you what I am sensing? Okay, then you can share that, right? So now what is coming out here? We could see that, hey, in this person feels that they have lost control, or they don't have the control, or the control is not in their seat, or it's with the boss or with the company, right? They feel almost like, okay, it's like end game already. I'm yeah, and I'm gonna retire, but I'm kind of like lost. I have no idea what I really want, right? So there are many different approaches you can take here. Nothing is wrong. So remember that in the coaching process, that's why as the mentor coach, I will be a little bit more careful of how I tell the client, because I don't want to tell the client, oh, this is the only way, or that's the only way. I'll probably give them a few options for them to consider. There's no right, no wrong, but it's just really about how do we facilitate the conversation forward, right? So what we are sensing here, and then this process here is what we call generative questioning based on the inputs of the client, and to generate some possible ways to kind of evoke more awareness for the client. Okay, so that is this one. Okay. Okay, we have a question here. Can we also explore at that point why did Braille choose explore? Yeah, of course you can explore. Yeah. So as the mentor coach, you could ask the question, hey, why would you choose that, right? And just explore that, no problem. Okay. Okay. So you see here, the client response. One part of me feels happy, but I'm also worried. Now, this is a very good, very good demonstration of ambivalence, and that is part of our video on YouTube. You can watch that on the ambivalent state. Okay. So on one side, time to take a break. On the other side, what I would be doing after retirement. So this is the ambivalence. Okay. So if I am okay, so let's ask the mentor here, ask Joanne. Okay, based on this one, what do you think about the coach response to the client?
Thank you for reaching out to me. I can sense your hesitation here. Enlighten me. What would you like to achieve? I enlighten me. Instead of enlighten me, maybe the coach can actually say, help me to understand what would you like to achieve at the end of this session in connection with your retirement planning? Or to
Okay.
build on what the client says.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, one of the things here, the best response here, okay, we are hearing these two parts from the client. At this stage here, one of the best demonstration of any competency is CC number 6. Okay, why do we say so? Because we want to be able to demonstrate that we have um, listened to the really the worries there, right? So I would kind of like probably have the coach to reflect the ambivalence that's here,
Mm.
right? So I would kind of like confirm with the client and say, hey, right, so um, let me see if I heard if I heard if I heard you right. Okay, there seems to be two sides that you are torn with. On one hand, on one hand, da 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 da, da, on the other, da 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 da.
Mm.
Okay, so I just reflect this to the client, and this is demonstrated in CC number. Six.
6.1.
Okay, 6.1, which is questions and observation customized to what yes, there's 6.1, and also 6.7, right, which is you're succinctly kind of trying to reflect or summarize what the client's communicated. So
Mm.
I may not put a question here, or I can put a question here, but I can say, hey, well, let me see if I heard you right. There seem to be two sides and this and that, and you're kind of like torn in between. Then I want to get a client to say, yes, yeah, that's how I feel, right? Why? Because although the client said this, but the client is not aware that they are kind of having this ambivalence. They're feeling the ambivalence, but they cannot kind of, they probably not understanding that they're actually feeling the ambivalence. Yeah. So yeah. So notice here, enlighten me what you would like to achieve by the end of the session. So this line of question would probably not demonstrate that we were listening in response to the whole of the client.
Mm.
Yeah, or we're not inquiring about how the client. In fact, here I can also, if I want to, I can go, do a step further. I can do a CC 6.5, which is inquire into the client's how they currently perceive their world. Right. So, for example, I could ask questions like this. I said, "Hey, you know, what would it be possible, or or why, or what, or why do you feel that that oh, okay, you could also ask it, is there a gap or a challenge in taking a break versus what you would be doing after retirement, right? So the main ways to ask this question, you could ask, is there a break? It's just to help him to help the client to kind of unravel what is the um, underlying issue here.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good. So great. Now let's take a look at here. Yeah. So the client says, I want to gain clarity about myself, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So thank you for sharing your concerns about maintaining your physical, mental well-being. At the end of the session, would you like to gain clarity on what some things would like to do? Is that correct? Okay. So let's ask this part here. What do you think about this?
I find that this part, Brill has actually very well summarized because the client talks a lot about many things. So she's able to use just like two keywords, physical and mental well-being, which this is the client's concern. And she asked, what would you like to gain clarity on some activities? Uh, so I think I will simplify this question. What would you like to achieve at the end of our coaching session in regards to your retirement plan? Because some activities I do not know whether you consider as a little bit assumptions, even though the client did say that I want to do something.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So
And
here,
also
yeah.
not to ask, is that correct?
Mm.
Just a straightforward question, what would be a good outcome at the end of our coaching session in regards to a retirement plan?
Yeah, yeah. I would say that's a good point, right? Which is what would be a good outcome that you like out of the session, because he's the client is still saying a lot of different things, right? And there's this part here, this part here, this part here, so many different parts here. So what would be a good outcome for us by the end of this conversation? Right? That's something a question can ask. So that's when we are saying about 3.1, right? Which is really about what the client really wants. We still haven't quite figured out what the client really wants here.
Mm.
Yeah. So here the coach actually jumped quite fast into the measures of success before actually establishing the a clear outcome, or at least a semblance of an outcome. Right, the outcome may not be so clear at the start, but it will get clearer. But at least having a general direction of where we want to go. Yeah. Okay. So here, now on a scale of 1 to 5, how much clarity do you have in terms of okay, so this is where what do you think of this one?
On a scale of 1 to 5, I mean, there's nothing wrong to ask a scaling question because the coach is trying to find out where is the client, in terms of his idea of retirement plan. But it's very much on the expression. Because I remember hearing the recording, it was an expression like wow, too, not so much from the client.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, this scaling thing, I would become a little bit more cautious of when to introduce a skill, or when to uh kind of use a skill. Do we use our skill, or do we use the client skill? Right. So usually I would recommend that we use the client skill. How would the client skill their clarity? Right. And notice, you see, um so far the client never says about uh he says, I want to gain clarity about what I want to do after retirement so I can keep myself busy and healthy and blah blah blah, right? And now, rather than using a skill, what can happen is we can ask the client a few questions like this. We can say, hey, where are you now in terms of that clarity that you wanted? Okay, then of course the next question you ask, where would you like to be in terms of clarity by the end of this conversation? Yeah. So this will give you that skill itself, right? Where you are and where would you want to be. This give you a skill from point one to point two. Okay. So this part here, it's where we look at competency number 3. Okay. 3.2. Okay. Okay, so as if you're the mentor coach, you could give the coach some ideas. Say, hey, one of the possible ways is to get the client to be the one giving you the skill,
But
questions
what
like this.
happen if there are some clients who have got no clue about the skill? So can you show them the skill?
No, so the skill doesn't have to be a numerical skill.
Okay.
Yeah, the skill can always be a qualitative skill. It doesn't have to be a quantitative skill.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you see, for example, right, maybe in this client's world, the qualitative skill doesn't make sense or the quantitative skill doesn't make sense. Because what is a 1 to 5 to me and how the client sees 1 to 5 in terms of numerical number, they may not connect the dots, right? So they may not connect the dots. Yeah. So this is something that typically I'll always say if you're doing this skill, so you elicit the desired and present state, okay, so that you can get the delta. Okay, once you have the delta difference, then once you have the delta difference, then we can kind of breach it. Now this state could be both qualitative or quantitative or both. Okay, or both. Yeah. So this is what so if the client never really said never really used the skill, for example, let's give a response from the client. The client says in terms of clarity, I'm not very clear. Okay, the client says this, and you ask them, where would that be? Well, the client says I would like to be maybe crystal clear. So there you have your measure. You have your measure of success, which is your skill. Your skill is a qualitative skill, not very clear to crystal clear. That is your skill. So this is an example of a qualitative measure of success. Yeah.
So do you go on to, because, so do you continue to ask, what does crystal clear means then?
Yeah, you could ask. You could ask that.
Yeah, because I mean, from here, uh, if they can express what crystal clear means, then that's great. But then sometimes clients will tell you, not say sometimes, quite often clients will tell you, I don't know.
Yep.
I mean, okay, for PCC certification, all that, yes, that's fine. But in real life clients, right, most of the time clients will tell you, I don't know. When
Yeah,
you
okay.
ask them, where are you in terms of clarity, right? They will always tell you, I don't know. That's why I'm talking to
Okay.
you.
So very good, very good. So
Yeah.
where are you now in terms of clarity? The client says, I don't know. Okay. I love this question, I don't know. I don't know means I know, but I don't know how to express. That's what the client is saying. Right. So this is what the client is saying. I know internally, but I don't know how to tell you. You know, it's like the client don't know how to. Yeah. So that's what the client is feeling. So then what I'll do is what we call metaphorium. We apply metaphorium here. He said, okay, if you were to use a metaphor to describe, what would that be? So the number can be a metaphor. So let's say it says I'm 5. That is a metaphor. If the client says I'm a unicorn, that is a metaphor. The client says I am Ruffles. Ruffles in the sleeping, right? I want to be Ruffles on the beach, pulling braille everywhere. Okay, that's where I want to be. Okay, it's a metaphor, right? Because this whenever the client says I do not know, it's not really they do not know. It's just that they cannot quite express that thing. So I will use a metaphor to kind of help them with that. Yeah. So even this, like, let's say the crystal clear, right? What does crystal clear look like for you? So
Yeah.
I,
So we
I
can
would
still ask that, right? I mean, when they
can.
tell you from not very clear to crystal clear, we should actually ask them, what does crystal clear look like to you? Isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yep. Correct. So then I can kind of explore the visual. Like, okay, so if you were crystal clear, what will you be seeing? If you were crystal clear, what will you be feeling? Yeah, try to connect that connective thought that have there in terms of how they want to experience. Yeah, because some of them just say, oh, crystal clear, but okay, what do you expect to see, or what do you envisioning to see. Now, of course, they will not be able to see clearly because there's a fog in between. They still have not quite go past. But as the conversation flows and expands more, they will get even much more clearer. Yeah. Okay, so very nice, very nice. Now we have all these options for all of us to think about. Okay,
So, Jedi,
yes,
can I just pause? So
yes.
ideally, the coach should establish a CA in the first 10 minutes.
Okay, so
First 10 minutes.
yeah, if I look at this transcript, right, and if the overall transcript length is 30 minutes, then I would say the CA should happen within the first 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, if my transcript is 45 minutes, then I go by percentage of time rather than by the first 5 or first 10 minutes. So I would say that at least the first 10% of the conversation, 10% of the whole conversation, or first 15% of conversation should be on that CA, kind of like getting down at least at the start. So what could happen? Let's say we use a 45 minutes time scale. The first 5-10 minutes could be talking about what has happened in the past, previous sessions. Then the next 5-10 minutes I'll spend on the CA. Then after that I spend the time on diving in deeper in the conversation. Then about 25 minutes way I do a midpoint check. Then I spend a little bit more time diving in. Then the last 15 minutes or last 15-20 minutes I will spend time on building the action steps for the client.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll pace it around like this. So although you may hear me say it's 5 to 10 minutes, right? It's because in reference to a 30-minute conversation. In a 30-minute conversation, if you spend 15 minutes, that's half the conversation gone on the CA. That means you hardly have time to go dive in deeper, right? Which is why I say about 5 to 7 minutes if you're doing a 30-minute conversation. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. Any questions for anyone?
So if let's say about the measure, right? When the client says, I would like to be crystal clear. So a natural follow-up for that question would be, and what would that look like to you? Or how would you know that you are crystal clear?
Okay. So let me put two possible questions here. How would look like for you when you are crystal? You see your second question. Your second question again.
The second question was, how would you know that you are crystal clear?
How would you know? Okay, how would you know you are crystal clear? Okay, so now this is where it's very important. What question we ask following this question? If I were to ask this question, how would you know you are crystal clear? The client says, I don't know. I hire you as a coach. That's why you're my coach, ma, right? If I know, then I don't come to you already. Why talking you? Okay. Now, why this happens? Linguistically, why this happens is because know, how would you know? This is what we call unspecified predicates. Okay. We will cover this in our advanced mentor classes. Now, why? Because there's an anchor of this thing. Oh, you know. This is a cultural anchor. Yeah. Don't assume you know that I know that you know, right? So that's the cultural anchor. So it's
Does it
unspecific.
does that second question also demonstrate that you are jumping into measurements already? Because how would you know is actually a measurement question
Correct,
instead of a exploratory question or awareness question?
yeah.
Because you know means, okay, you are there and these are the measures and that's why you know you're there.
Correct. So no is
Correct?
like, yeah, no is like you
Measurement question.
yeah, you
Whereas
really
how
know.
would you look like will be a awareness question, because look like is, it can be pink, it can be blue, it can be round, it can be square. So it's awareness. Whereas you know is, okay, I make sure it's a pink tone, and because it's pink, then I know that's the measure that I'm there. Correct?
Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
So it's
From a
really
linguistic
much,
perspective, I mean language. Yeah.
yes. Yeah. So from a linguistic perspective, it's really about getting the exploration first before going to the know. In fact, the client will never know. They will never know that they are crystal clear. For a simple reason, right? Why this questioner will never be asked. I will never ask this question. For a few reasons, because there's a fog in between. right? The client is here, X1. There's a fork. Okay, so let's say for example X1, they want to minus this fork in between to get to X2. This fork is there, so no matter what I want to do, right, I cannot see past the fork. So I will never know what I want to know because I've never gone there yet. So which makes this question kind of invalid, because had I know, I would have God's vision. But I don't know. That's why I trust. That's why faith is not walking by sight, but by faith. That's why we walk by not by sight, by faith, right? And this is where we help the client to not walk by sight, but by what they envisage they want to see, right? So they're trusting that, okay, this is what I'm going to look at. But along the way, as the fog dissipates, as it gets clearer, oh, okay, now I realize, hey, that's not really what I want. This is really what. For example, let's say along this coaching journey, then Beria says, okay, and Beria's in her mind is, okay, I want to be a mentor. I want to be a mentor. But along the way, she says, hey, oh, I finally 了解. I think I want to be a supervisor. Right now she realized, oh, maybe people are telling me I want to be a supervisor. So at the start, they may not be very clear in terms of that thing, but as it unravels as it unfolds, then that's why this one happens. So this is when we go deeper in terms of like the questioning, like what questions do we really ask? How do we generate the questions? We explore a little bit more in our coaching intelligence program, where we kind of break down the construct of questions. What makes a question a good question? What makes a question a question that really doesn't get us anywhere, any much further? Yeah. But this is a good question that Haida asked. So it's a good question. Okay, so, yeah. So
There will be cases where the how would you know is actually easier for the client to answer. Like for example, if let's say the client says, I would like to be a very good coach. I would like to be an excellent coach, right? And then if you ask the client, how would that look like or feel or sound? Let's say the client may not have a clear picture of what that looks like yet. But if you ask the client, how would you know you are an excellent coach? Then the client could say, oh, I will be an MCC, for example. Yeah. So that is just that was on my mind also.
Yeah. So even if let's say it's like let's say we use the question like, okay, how would you know you will be a good coach? Say, oh, I will know if I have the MCC. Now that itself is still very foggy, because which means that, so then that's when I'll reflect back to the client. So does getting the MCC equate to you becoming a good coach?
Yeah. So that is an opportunity to explore deeper into why they use MCC as the evidence for that outcome.
Yeah. So you could do that as well if let's say the question is kind of like more straight in terms of the response. Yeah. So as this is so more so for context of conversation where it's like achieving something, but when it comes to conversations like this one where it's more ambivalent kind of question, where the client's not, they want to see clarity kind of question, then definitely they would probably want to know. But if let's say let's say for example I want to lose weight, of course I know. How would I know that I have lost weight? How I look in the mirror, I don't look fat. Obviously I know I don't lost weight, right? So that is in terms of that context, is more of an achievement context than here. Yeah. So that's when that's why as a coach, when we think about questioning, we cannot memorize a set of questions. We have to understand the context, listen, and then have a feel of what question will really work best for this client in this context.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, like for example, the how would you know you are this? It works very well with people who are like, they really want the performance. That means they're not here, they want there. Yeah, but not a lot of people are like that. So they don't really have that clarity of where they want to go, as opposed to like what you mentioned, where if they are, let's say, I want to do this, but at the same time I'm that, then the how would you look or feel or sound like, it makes more sense. Yeah. So that is very true.
Okay, very good. Questions, anyone? So far, okay. Are we going too deep in? Or yeah. So helping Joanne to give her more options and more ideas of how this can be done. So so that's why sometimes, right, I may spend a whole mentor coaching session just on the first 5 minutes on the conversation. But you realize, right, even if we spend so much time on the first 5 minutes on the conversation, the mentoring process, it's really helping the coach to really take a step back to think about how they're asking questions, or are they asking questions based on a set of questions that they have, or how they're moving the conversation. Yeah, so this part here requires a lot of mentoring, which is that's the reason why we're mentor coaching, to help the coach become because you can watch all the videos and all the demonstrations, but it's not going to help you until you're in that seat to kind of respond accordingly. Right. So recently there was this coach who pointedly wanted to say, hey, can I have a demonstration for this particular competency? Can you show me how to do it? Then I said, well, you can watch the video. I said, more importantly is how I want to see how you're gonna do it. I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Okay, would you like to give it a shot? I want to hear you. Oh, no, 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 let other people do. Right? So now obviously then the coach will never get to experience it, because if the coach is not even getting into the hot seat to try it out, then it's going to be very, very hard. Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
So here at this stage for the mentor, let's say I'm Joanne, I can actually either pause here and I can get Braille to kind of like do some additional demonstration to solidify the learnings. Because sometimes if you run through the whole thing and it's too intense, the coach, it will fly all over the coach. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the front part is also a very good how you actually preset the the client, where are we, even though it's directed by the client, where the coaching conversation leads to, but
Mm.
the type of question that you ask, uh it builds up that momentum of going into deeper of the thoughts, and then the emotion that come with the thoughts, and eventually the actions.
Yep. Yep. I moved to a place to get power. Yes.
Powers of love.
Yeah. I thought she's moving to a higher place to get power. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good part, right? The first part, if we can do it well, it really helps the client to go deeper and to unravel those. Okay. Good. So is this helping for your mentoring?
Yes, because I suddenly, now that you're going through with this, I just correlated to the curriculum development program that I'm doing. In order to curate that curriculum well, to understand the learning needs, to do the learning needs analysis, that front portion is very, very important, because if that front portion you get it wrong, what comes, that whatever that follows, it will not be so useful, or rather
Mm,
it may be useful, but it is not strategic. It doesn't hit to the point. Yeah, you get what I mean? And
yep.
so the front part is very important. So to me, this is like learning needs analysis conversation.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's the that's why I always say that the first part's so important. If the first part is kind of like off, then all your conversation will go in a different direction. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, very good. So yeah, that's why when we see all this skill, okay, then okay, we can kind of skip past the skill. Okay, so the coach did ask some of the key questions like why is healthy being important, then blah blah blah. Okay, I think this is the physical expression, right? Or the video, and then
Uh,
the and excited. Okay, so okay, so here's good because the coach did says I can have permission to share some observation. I
yes.
sense a shift, so this is a good demonstration of CC5. Um, however, this is where I mean, there's nothing wrong with this whole sentence, but if I want to share my observation, I want to be thinking about how do I make this more succinct? How do I make this a little bit more curated?
I think because the client has said so much, it will be good to actually do a subtle reflection.
Mm,
Yeah, so it's like, oh, that's where the empathy can comes in, thanks for sharing with me about your parents. I mean, I hear you mentioning about or you can actually say that I'm hearing your concern about health because of what your parents has gone through.
mm.
And from your voice, I also sense that there is a conflict in emotion. So may I share with you an observation at this point of our conversation?
Mm.
So it's like there is a little bit of build up of reflecting because the client actually said so much before you share or ask permission to share observations.
Yep. Yep. So here it's yeah. So that's a good point by Joanne, where the coach could do this in this style, right? So you would probably, maybe the thing I should do is reflect, then into share. Right. So in this style where I kind of like reflect back. So not just straight away, oh, can I permission share with you? It's like too fast. Just to make sure that I've heard correctly. So hey, Mr. Klein, well, I'm hearing several things. I'm hearing that you were worried about this, and you're excited about this, and that's quite a lot of interesting things. And is it okay if I share with you some of my observations of what I'm noticing you? Right. So we had a little of reflection first, before we have this statement of permission to share. Well, which is okay. Right. So in that way, if I can do a little bit of reflection, I then fulfill again competency number 6. So I get the opportunity to kind of demonstrate that. But from a practical standpoint, it allows the client to feel that, hey, okay, this coach is listening to me. This coach is not just asking me questions, but this coach is really like listening to me. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So here, can you help me understand a shift in motions? Okay, so now when I read this, I sense a shift in your emotions when you mention about your health concerns. You sound worried, but when you share, explore. Can you help me understand the shift in emotions? Okay, so now what you think about this in relation to what the coach has requested from the client?
I think it can be a bit more precise on that shift of emotion. What kind of emotion? Uh, so the highlight of the emotion, it could be a little bit of a sad, because of the parents did not actually get to enjoy their life. The death was a little bit too sudden or abrupt. So that is the emotion. And then after that, when we talk about something else, it has the excitement. So perhaps the coach can actually mention, I noticed that there is a change of view when there's a change of emotion when you talk about your parents, and then when you also talk about the forward looking of what is going to be like in your retirement. So
Mm,
being a little bit more precise on the emotion, would that help?
yeah, okay, but let's take a look from a higher level. When we ask the client for permission to share observations, okay, and notice that the coach is just saying that I sense a shift in your emotions. Okay, so this one actually don't need to ask for permission.
Mm.
Yeah, I will ask for permission if I'm sharing something a little bit more sensitive, or if I'm sharing my own intuition or my thoughts into that whole process. But if I'm just observing a shift in emotions, because the coach noticed here, worried, sad, and excited, right? So this is actually I'm observing. So I'm observing a shift in emotion. So I can straight away just without even saying this, I can straight away just say, hey, I sense a shift in emotions about this. This is I can straight away ask this question. But if I want to ask for permission to share some observations, then I would probably be sharing something that uh that will introduce my perspective, or a little bit more of a risk-taking conversation, or a little bit more intuitive in that nature, because it's something that's not what the client has said, but something from my angle. I'm watching it, right? Because uh, this question here, it's doesn't require a permission per se.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Because the coach, she also do a contrast in terms of that emotion to reflect to the client, because you sound worried when you talk about your parents, and then when you talk about the future of Singapore, I can sense the excitement. Uh, so maybe she can phrase it. Can you help me to understand, what is going on in your thoughts right now?
Mm. Yep. Depending on how you want to have it um come across. So if let's say the objective, right, of this of the coach response is really to explore the emotions, then I can just straight away say this. But if the outcome is that I want to share an intuition, or I want to share something else that's a little bit more direct in the face. Okay, for example, right, the key issue here is with this guy, from my angle, is that uh actually he's kind of lost in terms of where he wants to be or he feels that having worked so long, it's not right for him to take a break. So if let's say I feel that that's the one I want to say to him, so I can say, hey Victor, can I have permission to share with you some of my can I share with you some of my thoughts? I said, hey Victor, as you're sharing with me, I can really feel that you have spent so much time and energy, working for the last several years of your life, but you're not giving yourself the permission to take a break. And the moment you think about taking a break, you feel that it's not right to take a break, right? But what I'm sensing is that you've not given yourself the permission to take a break. Okay, then you pause there and you say, hey, and let me know what your thoughts on this. Now, this is because it's coming from my perspective. That's why I would may have permission to share. Yeah. Now, when we do this, then what we're trying to do here is we're trying to do CC number 7. CC number 7. Okay, ask questions to explore beyond the current thinking about the situation or the current desire, right? Or I share my intuition and observations, and invites the client's exploration through verbal or tonal invitation. So notice that. What do you think? Right? Invites that to kind of like really latch onto it. Yeah. So that's what I would try to do. So when I look and compare between the opportunity here and what I could have done, I would kind of reflect that as well. Yeah. Okay. So either says to reflect or observe something is to yeah. So if you observe something that is plainly what the client says, I don't have to ask for permission. Yeah. But if let's say I'm perceiving something, I having some intuition, and if my observations are it might not be obvious to the client, but if those observations are rising, let's say this client is maybe a workaholic, right, or something like this, or my comments are coming from my angle, my point of view, then I'll ask for permission. So how I would see it is like, for example, if I'm entering a theater for surgery, I will keep the entire theater sterile. So sterile means that sterile conversation means that all the inputs are from the client. Now, the only time I introduce a foreign object is when I will ask for permission to introduce my thoughts, my worldview, my concepts, blah 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 blah. Right. So for example, let's say my thoughts in my own worldview is that everyone should have a break. You should give yourself a break. Okay, that's my worldview. Or maybe my thought is that he should take a sabbatical, take a 1 year, go and find himself, go and explore the world, go to Tahiti, go to Shangri-La, go to Bhutan or wherever. Right? If that is my worldview, I can say, hey, okay, Mr. Klein, is it okay if I share with you some of my observations? I say, hey, what I'm observing is this, and what I'm sensing is that, and what are your thoughts on this? Right. So that's when I will share. Okay. Very nice.
So fast,
Okay.
10:30 already.
Oh, so fast 10:30. Time catches us so fast when we have so much fun. But is this helpful for you? Is this helping you? Yes.
I got a question on just now. Can you
Yes.
reshare? Okay, you see you just scroll up a little bit. So here the coach in the transcript puts like the asterisk excited or asterisk worry or sad. In this case, then wouldn't it be the perception of the coach to put it there? Because it may or may not be true, right? Let's say, for example, we put there worried or sad, but what if it's like frustration or some other emotion?
Oh, I think this is what the coach saw. Is it? This is what Brio saw from the client?
Yeah, but this will not be in the submission to ICF.
Okay.
Yeah, this is more me writing it here for my mentor coach, so that so this is me thinking about the feelings that I saw, but then my mentor coach then can listen to the recording and then tell me whether my assessment is correct. That's why I put asterisk. All the asterisk will not be there when I submit for ICF. Yeah, that's not the purpose. It is more to help my coach, to my mentor, to tell me whether I'm reading it correctly or not from the voice recording, because we will not be sending the videos to our mentor coach. I mean, we can if we want to, but we will not send that to the assessor, right? So when we don't send it to the assessor, they are going to base it on voice. So this is my sensing. I send it to my mentor, and then my mentor will tell me whether I'm wrong, my sense is wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is what
This
The
is
I-
more
the
internal.
mentor can say whether it's wrong or right, because it's like I would think that only
No,
the client themselves.
No, so
Yeah.
so this is what I'm hearing, or I think I'm hearing from my assessment perspective, right? Like just now when Jedi talk about what I'm observing is this, what I'm sensing is this. It seems to me you're not giving yourself this. And then what's your last sentence again? Jedi, you said something.
Mhm. Oh, you
What?
mean about resting, is it?
Yeah. Then you
Yeah.
said something else. What was the closing?
Oh, see, does this make any sense, or what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. So basically for me, right, is that I'm hearing all these things. I think this is me, my perception, that when my client says this whole sentence and this is what he or she says, I think that they are worried or sad. That's the impression they give me. Then when they say this, but honestly, I want to live as long as I can, the perception I get is excitement. Yeah, this is my perception of what I'm hearing. Okay. And okay, so for me, I'm just how to say, I just want to make sure that my perception is not wrong.
Yeah.
Or maybe my perception is wrong, then I hope my mentor coach can tell me. I do agree with you, Haider, that because my mentor coach is not there, they may not be able to tell me. But I'm just putting my mentor coach in the shoes of an assessor, right?
Yeah.
Because when I say there's a conflict in what you just shared, right? It may come across as words, and it may come across as tonality of voice or expressions of emotions through the sentence. May not literally be I'm happy, but yet I'm sad. You get what I mean? It may not be a word. So I'm helping. I'm hoping that my mentor coach would be able to tell me that, hey, actually in the recording, the tonality of voice doesn't seem to suggest this at all.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Yeah,
So
because
this is what can
because
happen.
otherwise the assessor also will read it. I mean, my mentor coach, assuming she's my assessor, right? She will also read it that way. She'll say, because if you look, my follow-on question is based on my impression of the conversation. So I sense a shift in your emotions, right? So although I didn't say, emotions of happy to sad or whatever, right? But which is what Joanne is mentioning, but the thing is that maybe the voice is so monotonous, there's no shift in emotions. What are you talking about? Yeah, you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah, this is what would be important, right? Now this is where an opportunity arises where what we cannot see visually,
Yeah,
we would want to articulate out in words. So for example, let's say I'm sensing,
yeah,
if you were there and you saw that kind of shift, you can just ask him questions. So before even sharing observation, you can before this, then as a coach, I will probably do this. Is, hey, Mr. Klein, as you were just sharing that, how were you feeling as you were sharing that? Yeah. Right. And then how were you feeling when you were sharing about that? So I asked him to elicit the feelings of the first one, cancer, elicit the second feelings about the other one, so that I get his input from there. Yeah. So that way, even let's say the clients, let's say the face twitch, okay, let's say the hands on this side here, for
or they hold their
conflict
head,
Ah.
I see that you are holding your head. Of course, the assessor's not going to see that, right? Then, and of course, my mentor coach is not there, so my mentor coach is also not going to see it. But then
correct.
I know what you're saying. So I need to, as a coach, for the purpose of PCC, I need to articulate that, saying that, I notice you're holding your head when you said it, putting your hand in your forehead when you said it, help me understand why is that? What does the action mean to you?
It isn't just for PCC. It's also for a normal conversation, because in a
Yes.
normal conversation, maybe the person's not aware that they're doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, like Ray, as you were just sharing just now, I noticed that when it's beginning to sink in within you, you tend to put your hand here. For example, like that.
Yeah. Yes,
You know,
yes.
so then you can express out, but this makes awareness for the client as well. So client is also aware that, oh, okay, I'm actually having those gestures. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this also falls under your competency, where you notice all the different changes and shifts in the client's world, in the body movements as well. Okay, good. How is this doing for all of us? Joy looks very happy.
I didn't know so fast 3 months already.
Yeah, so fast. I wish got more sessions, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give Joanne more free session.
Have, if she want, I always welcome her. We can have more sessions. Then make sure Braille do a second recording, then we do another session.
Yeah, because okay, so of course I find it very useful when I'm the case, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
But obviously for me it's a lot of learning. But I think it's also I find that the journey that I am on with Joanne also gives me a chance to practice. Yes. And it forces me to be more aware and more diligent in making the necessary improvements that she highlighted. Yeah.
Yep. So this is what Joanne you can do with Braille the next round. So in terms of that PCC markers, right? You can challenge Braille if she wants to take the challenge. Like, okay, so Braille, you do the recording with the client, and then after that, this is what you're gonna do, Braille. You're gonna fill in your PCC observation sheet. Okay, so I want you to quote the evidence for these boxes here. Okay, then those boxes you do not know whether you did or not. Just put them, then leave it blank. Yeah, and then on this middle column is what could you have done, or what would you like to what would you like have on hindsight, what would you like to have done? So this is the middle column. Then this last column is when, as the mentor coach, I'll use to type, yeah, in the mentoring session. Yeah. So this is something you can use. So the mentor coach observation sheet is actually more for me to observe you than for you to
Oh, okay.
observe.
No
Yeah.
wonder. Like yesterday, I was looking at the form for almost 1 hour. I was just finding how to fill up this form. Very
No, it's actually
confusing.
more for me because I wanted to watch your mentoring with Braille. If you had done that recording, I thought your recording you sent me was you mentoring Braille. So then I listening,
Ah,
yeah. So
okay, okay.
no problem. We can arrange another session. I mean, if you want, I'm always very happy to do more sessions. Where you can actually, or you can do it live lah. Like where you when you arrange a call with Braille, then I just hop in. I just off my screen.
Yeah.
Then you mentor her, which would be easier. Like you don't have to do 2 times. Then I can observe how you all do it. No?
Mm.
Then I'll use that sheet. Then to give you the observation, but you will use these PCC markers for Braille. So then you have two.
Okay. Can. Thank you so much for mentoring me to be a mentor for the past 3 months. I'm a mentor. And
Well,
thank you also to the supporter. Supporter very
yeah,
helpful.
yeah, you're not very sad because I tell Joanne most of the time when we do this program is one-on-one. So I say that if you want, I bring in more people to Jojo, then they have more fun. Yeah, it's only me and Joanne. Yeah.
But it's
Okay.
also good because it strengthens the CCL team. I mean, so that everybody is clear about mentoring.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
each
the
round-
la la tui.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
an opportunity for you to align your mentoring also.
correct. Yeah, each round we do even much more. Like sometimes we invite more and more of the mentors to come and join me because every time there will be a new learnings for different contexts that's happening. Yeah. So great. Well, it's been a very nice journey also. I know it's a very short journey, but we will have more sessions together, and then we will use some of the group mentorings as a chance to kind of practice and refine. So sometimes those are very good opportunities to kind of refine. The key thing actually for the mentor is to be very clear in terms of the competency requirements and the distinctions, and also being clear of, let's say for example, I know Joanne has a lot of certificates, like a lot of different tools that she's aware of, right? So the distinction between application of those tools and the competencies. Yeah. So like let's say the student coach is a positive psychology student who also using positive psychology in the coaching session. Then I will not be addressing the positive psychology, but you can if you are the mentor. But I would address based on the competency. I say, okay, if you're applying positive psychology, if you're applying Gestalt, you're applying somatic coaching or whatever, right? I'm listening for the demonstration of competency. So it doesn't matter whether you solution focus, whatever focus you use, but what I'm hearing for is going to be common across all the different approaches and types. I'm going to listen for that only. So then that will help us build the confidence in the mentoring process. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I will ask you more questions when I'm stuck with mentoring.
Can just text me like anytime. Yeah. Then I'll arrange a time with you to meet up with you to give you your cert.
Okay.
Singaporean need cert one, and then you need physical cert also. So since okay, then I'll pass you a physical cert. I'll give you a digital one as well.
Okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Hope this helps
you.
everyone.
Have a
No
good lunch. Good day ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. See you guys.